to the Minister of Justice.
Okay, that is quite incredible, really. I have seen you in the mainstream media. You have received quite a bit of coverage for the work that you're doing. Do you think that the media has been fair to you in its representations of your efforts?
Absolutely not. So what the media does is to legitimize the regime, to facilitate the restrictions, but also to ridicule the people that are critical of this regime. And as one of the spokespeople for the critical movement against the restrictions and the lockdowns, I have been ridiculed but also demonized. I have had attackers at my school trying to physically assault me. So it is a dangerous and slippery slope the media is going, and I'm generalizing. Of course, there are still journalists that try to be fair and balanced, but what we see more and more is that these journalists cannot get their pieces published. There is a narrative that has to be upheld. Now, the narrative concerning people that are critical is in the following order: extreme right, anti-Semite, racist, terrorist, and conspiracy lunatics. And this is, without exception, a protocol that is being rolled out by all the old media, as I call them, which are normally known as the mainstream, but getting less and less mainstream. So everywhere you go, it's the same arguments. Now, I really believe in speaking out and really exercise your right of freedom of expression and freedom of opinion. And we do see a shift within the police, that they have stopped the police brutality starting from the 1st of April, but also a shift around the 1st of May in the media is that they are now constantly covering more and more, for instance, about aerosols, for instance, about the lab-made origin of the virus, for instance, about the lethality of the injections. So we are seeing a more fair coverage of the subjects, but I cannot call it fair yet. It is now 80-20, where it used to be 95-5%. And that same goes to people like me who are very critical about the regime.
Now, you have also been targeted in a pretty significant way for this work. Can you talk about your arrest and case?
Yes, so I was arrested 2 times, and one of those occasions they are filing charges of sedition, which is, of course, absurd. So when that case came about, I made very clear and very sure that we had a lot of media attention there. Now, what the public prosecutor tried to do is to set an example. Be careful if you go up against the regime, because we will crush you. And we are not intimidated by these kind of tactics. So we made very clear and very sure that our case was strong. And I filed charges against the public prosecutor because they have committed fraud in this case, which was to be expected, because if you make false charges, yes, then you might be able to get an indictment or to get a verdict. And they are still pursuing the case, but at least the judge ruling about this case has allowed us to call for witnesses. And that makes it almost 100% sure that they will not get any conviction, because now we can hear people. So we wanted to also hear the mayor, which has ordered the immediate stoppage of the demonstration that we were taking part of. But that was not allowed. And that already shows that they are on very thin ice, because from the papers we see that only the mayor can order a stop to a demonstration, but the demonstration was stopped by a public prosecutor, which is fraud, and not only that, it is a breaking of the law. And as a civil servant, you're held to higher standards, especially when you're a public prosecutor. So we're turning the tables, and this is like a boxing match. You try to feint, so the other or your opponent overreaches, and that's when they are weak. So we're not letting go of this case. We're filing cases against them personally. So like with the judges and with the doctors, we also have to take these people to court and to hold them accountable for their crimes. These are all examples of the strong arm of the regime. This is what I think President Truman has mentioned in his speech about the military-industrial complex. We're seeing such a cartel acting here as well, but now it's much more the media, big tech, big pharma political complex. It's not so much about oil, guns and steel as it is about control, surveillance and information.
It's not really about health, is it?
It is absolutely not about health, because if you talk about health, you talk about immune systems, you talk about healthy living, you talk about social well-being, and all of those subjects are non-subjects in this crisis.
What has been the public's reaction to the work that you're doing?
It's mixed, because a lot of people believe the narrative of what the state broadcasts are pushing out. So that propaganda is working to some extent. But on the other hand, a lot of people are getting more and more aware, so that they see that what is brought to them as the truth or the narrative is a fake story. So there is some polarization of the people who are really in favor of the work that we are doing and the people that are really against it. And to try to avoid this, but that's not an easy job, is not to retaliate, is not to scare people into fearing the government or to fearing the vaccines, but to constantly come back to the nuanced scientific debate, to come back to the debate on ethics, to point out the flaws in the logic, to point out the false dilemmas. There is no quick fix and there is no shortcut in truth and in awareness. We are not fighting a regime. We are fighting for humanity, in a sense that if we do not raise the awareness, we cannot expect people to act and to behave responsible.
Do people recognize you when you go out now?
Always, yes, without exception. It is, I guess, the status of a famous person. And what is funny about it is that if you look at social media, there's a lot of shadow banning, so my accounts are not that big, in the tens of thousands. But then if I look at the impact that we had in the street, I cannot go out without being recognized. And also the narrative in the media is almost as if I'm a criminal or a terrorist. But then what I meet in the street is a lot of friendly, happy people, very thankful of me, wanting to take pictures. So it is almost a schizophrenic experience, the media narrative and the reality that I get from going out in the street.
You mentioned being obviously arrested. You're clearly targeted, and you're also being smeared in the media. Some people may be wondering, why continue to do this work?
Yeah, if it was only for the money and the fame, I would never have started this. We make absolutely no money with this, and the The fame is something that I was already used to because I was flying around the world performing everywhere with my dancing. So that is not something that I'm still actively pursuing in life. But I will use that status to fight for humanity and to fight for human rights, to fight for human dignity. What is happening now is nothing short of reprogramming humankind from a tribe society. And what I mean with that is that if we look at it biologically speaking, we can compare us to wolves, elephants, dolphins, hyenas, which have a tribal superfamily, very complex social structures. And we are being reprogrammed into herd mentality, comparable to cattle or sheep. And this is something that I cannot allow and that I cannot condone.
What would you say to others who are watching right now who are feeling inspired by the work that you are doing and they want to also make a difference?
What I think is really important is to start doing. To live your life according to your values, and with that, you're already part of the resistance. Don't wait for the savior. Don't wait for the plan to be perfect. Don't think you have to avoid smear campaigns or framing. By doing it, you will find opposition. By doing it, you will be smeared. But see it as a proof of being or going in the right direction. If nobody is noticing you, you are still in stage 1. Then you're being ignored. Then stage 2 is being ridiculed. Stage 3 is being demonized. Stage 4 is being ruined. And then stage 5, hopefully it won't happen to a lot of us, is being assassinated. Now, of course, when you are part of the resistance, it is not without a price. You will lose friends. You might lose your job. You will be mocked and smeared. You might even have assaults on your property or your life. But I still think this is a small price to pay for our freedom. Freedom in my life or in my lifetime was always a vague concept until it was not. And I realized that this is the defining moment, but also life without freedom is not worth living. And then you can think of, yeah, but maybe I lose my job, so I will keep my head down. If you keep your head down, you will not only lose your job, you will lose your livelihood, you will lose your social life, you will lose your dignity, you will lose everything that makes life worth living.
How can people get involved or help?
By speaking your truth, you make yourself visible. And yes, of course, also visible for the people who are against you. But those are a mere distraction. What I mean is, if you start speaking yourself out, you will start attracting people that are like-minded, that agree with you, that want to act, that want to fight for their life, their freedom, human values. And by doing so, you create communities. And those communities interlink with other communities. And this is the bottom-up, the grassroots movement that we need to go against this network of corruption. The basis of everything, and that is love. Embodying love sounds like something for romantic movies or pop songs, but now it has gotten a whole different meaning. Love is the force that binds people together, that holds society whole. And it also means that if we do not act out of love, we will not succeed. if we are only fighting against the thing that we don't want, we will stay in a perpetual war of attrition. The other side can't win because they do not carry any real values. But we can lose. And how we lose is to lose ourselves. So if we constantly come back to that, I would say almost universal source, that capacity to let go of the borders between your ego and the outside, because that is my technical definition of love, then we cannot overcome. So in a very practical sense, what that means is that people need to accept their feelings. And by accepting all those feelings, you restore self-love. And if you have enough self-love, and only from that point, you can truly love other people, regardless of race, sex, ethnicity, whatever. And with that, you make a real connection. So, number one, and this is the 4-step system that I try to give everybody. Love yourself. Number 2, take care of your family. Number 3 is form communities. Number 4 is link those communities and organize. And if we keep doing this, constantly starting from point 1, then going to point 4, and repeat. We keep repeating this cycle until we win.
This has been a really inspirational and moving discussion. Willem Engel, thank you.
Thank you very much, Taylor.
Absolutely. And I want to thank you all for watching this video. As I always say, please share it on your social media and don't forget to share it with your friends and your family, because this is a perspective on the COVID-19 crisis that is heavily suppressed in the mainstream news. And if you want to keep up to date with Willem's efforts, you can follow him on social media. We will, of course, continue to keep you updated, so please make sure that you are subscribed to The Last American Vagabond, and I hope that you do feel a little bit more motivated and inspired after watching this interview. So again, I want to thank you guys for watching. I'm independent journalist Taylor Hudak, and I'll see you in the next video.